This is a test of the Boundary Park alert system. Hello all Oldham fans, welcome to a brand new series of the Boundary Park alert system, a new fan-run podcast talking about everything Oldham Athletic. On and off the pitch, a new season has begun. I'm recording this on Sunday. Yesterday, I chatted with the lads from Push the Boundary, the supporters group, and we had a chat about the opening game of the season against Orient. And we talked about some of the new things that have been happening, the new CEO, Carl Evans, who's just been appointed. And, you know, we get the new podcast season and the new football season off to a gentle start, but this podcast is about the fans, and I'm hoping over the coming weeks to be able to engage with you more and more. I'm kind of making it up as I go along because that's the best way to do it. It's the only way to do it. You've just got to get going. You've got to start. So I've engaged Push the Boundary so that they can help me with that because they have a wide reach to the fan base. My connection with the fans is usually through my Twitter handle at Dublin Dini. On the podcast Twitter handle is OAFC Podcast, and that's how I've been engaging with fans from Dublin, which is where I'm recording this. So over the season, let's hope that this is a good platform for fans to engage, to chat. It seems now that most of our communication with people is on Zoom, so recording Zoom conversations is easy enough, so there's no reason why I can't engage with lots of you that way. Push the Boundary have said that they've got lots of contacts that might be interested in coming on the podcast. So it's a really good forum for us to talk about things and to let our feelings be known. Latics fans are very good at letting their feelings be known. And rightly so, we've had a lot of things going on over the last few years. Like I say, a few years. Maybe it's intensified over the last few years before that as well. You know, we've been in a rut for a long time, and that has really spurred people on to become more vocal and become more organised, and I think that's a really, really good thing, a really, really valuable asset for the club and for us as fans. The phrase "keep the faith" is thrown around a lot, but it's been very, very hard to do that over recent years. So on with the podcast. I will stop talking now and play the conversation that I had yesterday with Adam and Danny from Push the Boundary. There is an annoying little scratching sound on the beginning of the recording, but we do get that sorted out, so it is doing your head in. Please don't worry, it will stop. I hope you will enjoy the conversation, and if you want to get in touch, I'll repeat the Twitter handles again at the end of the show. I'm joined by Adam Keeley and Daniel Taylor, who are both members of Push the Boundary supporters group. And we have literally just had the pleasure, in inverted commas, of watching the first home league game of the season against Orient. And before I pressed record, we asked each other all if we'd enjoyed it, and the general consensus was no. The result, we lost 1-0. Late goal. I was texting the family group. We're all Oldham fans. My mum, my dad, my brother, and my dad. He's been saying the same thing for many, many years. Exasperated. Why do we always give away late goals? Regardless
just that mentality, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't matter who the team is, does it? It doesn't matter who's playing for us. It happens year after year.
It doesn't. Obviously, I thought this season, with potentially having the likes of Wheater and Virgiani together, it might have helped us. Obviously, Wheater's out of favour for obviously reasons well documented, and I just feel if we had them two together, it'd give us a bit more of stronger basis to work from, and maybe cut out these silly little errors which seem to happen. But we're in League Two, and you see a lot of these. I mean, there's a goal that Southend have given away today that I've seen already. And 6 yards out, keeper passes it to, I think it's Ferdinand, who just gifts it to their striker and he puts it into an empty goal. So it's, it's one of those things that we're going to have to work on. And first game of the season, hopefully not get too down with it and see where we go.
I mean, I think it's a fair point. Experienced defender like David Wheater, not even on the bench. It's obviously not a football-related issue. That was Adam talking, by the way, for those who didn't recognise his voice.
Apologies. Good evening.
Yeah, but I don't think that the defence played too badly. I thought overall it wasn't my main concern for the team. I don't think. League Two, like you say, fair point. You're always going to give away silly goals in this division. It's your ability to stick them in at the other end, which gets you up and out of the division. So, Danny, how do you think we looked overall?
It was a bit underwhelming, if I'm honest. I thought it was just a real low blow. Obviously, conceding so late in the game. After feeling in no danger whatsoever, I didn't think that Leyton Orient offered too much. I mean, Lawler made certainly one good save before it being cleared, but there weren't many clear-cut opportunities, really. It was very much like a game of chess in so much as both teams managed each other. They weren't keen on giving too much away, and obviously the goal at the end was a real sucker punch completely.
You don't mind losing to a bit of quality at the end of the game, maybe, but that was just a bog standard kind of,
slow off the mark, wasn't it?
Yeah,
slow off the mark for Jambati to catch up with their defender for the header, and then that second ball, the bounce. Piergiani was nowhere near it, and I'm not sure whether it was Hamer, the other side of him. Both of them just not quick enough to switch onto it. And it happened, I noticed, first half as well, where we were setting up for corners, and they took 2 corners in quick succession, short, and they nearly scored off the second one. It's almost like we're not learning off those little mistakes. Obviously, like I say, it's a new side that's been put together, and it is going to take time to gel. Just hopeful that obviously Kewl picks up on those little bits as we go on.
I mean, I don't want to be too critical, but on one of the corners that you mentioned, Adam, then the Dylan Fage had followed the lad in, and then the lad had come back out and disappeared, taking Fage with him. And Fage must have switched off, because he just made the same run again and got the short corner and in yards of space. Thankfully, it didn't come of anything, but. There is a lot to work on. Obviously, there's going to be a lot to work on for plenty of teams in our division, and hopefully we can get bounce back certainly on Tuesday and set up a tie going forward with Newcastle or Blackburn, really.
Yeah, I mean that'd be good. We need points, don't we, in the league? It'd be nice to get through to third round of the cup and stuff like that, but. The league's what it's all about this season, and I mean, for me, I don't think it was too bad. I think we had a much worse side last season. I think there are signs for optimism. I think everybody that was on the pitch today showed a little bit what they could do. I think there was people making mistakes, and I think some of the players didn't involve themselves in. As much of a way as I would have wanted them to. They should have hopefully all have a lot more in the locker, but I don't think it's a bad side that we put out today. I certainly watched us play and felt a lot more, a lot less hopeful, let's say, than I did after today's game.
It's one of those things where you look at how we started. First 5 minutes, it was Leyton Orient all day long, and they had a couple of long-range efforts. And I think that carried out for the rest of the half, really, where they only really tested us from long distance. After the 20-minute mark, where we switched Grant over to the right-hand side, I thought we looked a little bit more productive. But second half, we didn't show anything like that. It's all a tale of two stories, isn't it? Because you look at the incident in the first half with McElhaney, the clean out by Lawrence Vigouroux, their goalkeeper. For me, it was a penalty. I know some others probably might say it wasn't, but McElhaney's headed the ball away from the keeper, and their keeper's taking him out. So for me, it was a penalty, and that changes the game completely then, doesn't it? We start to look to attack and Leyton Orient go a little bit more defensive, and the game changes. But It's the little fine margins that we've got in this league.
No, I mean, I thought there's some decent performances, really, with individual performances. I thought that Garrity and Whelan had quite a few nice touches in there in the middle. And McElhaney looks at times that when he's on the ball, he looks like he could produce something pretty spectacular and pretty special. But we couldn't get the ball enough to him enough. We couldn't get in behind enough, and unfortunately, we came up a little short. And like I said before, the goal at the end was an absolute killer, really, to start the season off. Obviously, if you start the season off with 1 point, you've got something on the board. But coming away from the game at home to Leyton Orient with in the end, a disappointing 1-0 defeat is just slightly underwhelming.
It's frustrating, isn't it, though, that if you look at, like Danny said there, we've come away losing 1-0, but we've had plenty of chances. And second half, you look at the opportunities where people have got into the box. Hamer has had a couple of crosses into the box, both with Jackson, McElhaney, looking to put someone in. And we just lacked anybody up there. For me, I know obviously Rowe came to us last season, he scored a couple of goals. I just think for a striker that we've brought him in to do the job of, he drops far too deep for me.
Yeah.
If I was Kuhl, I'd be saying to him, stick up there. And I think that was the sort of thing that Sheridan did, that a lot of people like with Sheridan. He made his main striker stay up there and they'd never come back.
I think
he'd get so many more goals like that.
I think there could be an argument there, though, that we were lacking in midfield, that we weren't bossing midfield, and that Rowe was dropping back. For me, in terms of I think that's the area that we need to work on. I think if we can dominate midfield a bit more, and then we can play higher up the pitch and press teams and push them back a bit more, maybe get round them a bit more, then we might have something. But I think there is enough threat up front. There is enough creativity. We saw some nice flicks and whatnot, but it's all our best moves kind of came from deep, and kind of we're kind of breaking forward. I just feel that the midfield lads didn't really get a grip of the game and really dominate the game. I think that's where we need to strengthen.
I mean, as much as I said, obviously, about Garrity and Whelan, they had a few nice touches on the ball. They look neat and tidy. We still do miss, obviously, an older head in midfield, in my opinion, of like a Chris McCann in there who basically marshals and controls the tempo of the game. I mean, there's been quite a few in League Two over the years. I mean, one of my favourites is Nicky Law, that used to be at Bradford. Is at Exeter, and the game's basically played at the tempo that he wants it to be played at. I think McCann did that to a degree last year when he came in, and I think around McCann and Garrity and Whelan would be able to obviously play the nice, neat, tidy football, and potentially get the wingers and even the fullbacks in behind. Like we were saying, that we didn't get in behind enough. But yeah, it was just that. Whenever we got the ball out wide, we either didn't have enough bodies in the box, or the delivery wasn't too good, and then we were restricted to shots from outside the area that were, again, 15, 20, 25 yards out, that didn't trouble the keeper as much as we possibly needed it to.
Yeah, we didn't test the goal anywhere near enough to do shots on target and that kind of thing. But I mean, if the thing is with Latics and supporting Latics, and you know yourself as much as anyone, because you've set up, pushed the boundary, and you've done that purely out of frustration at the dwindling, not just the results on the pitch. Obviously, we know there's a lot more than that, but every season it gets harder and harder and harder to have optimism, to have excitement, to have interest in what's coming up. And I put a poll out asking people if the ban on fans had been lifted, would they have gone? And the result of that poll, there was 223 people voted, and it was 60-40 in favour of people would have gone. But if you look at that, that's 40% of fans who, had they been able to go, wouldn't have gone. You know, that's worrying, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of those things that we've done as you know, we've probably done 2 surveys now on the season ticket holders.
Yeah.
And the figures coming back they are quite similar to what's already out there now. I think they come out the club and said there's 1,402 that have been sold. And I think our survey had calculated around 1,370. So, you know, there's not a great deal of difference there. And, you know, it is declining every year. People with children, for me, my brother stopped going a couple of years ago. When he's seeing more losses than wins, kids, the amount of TV that's there now with, you know, Sky, you've got quite a lot of teams in the Northwest area that are winning games and stuff. It's hard to keep the fan base there. And if we're not winning games and not fighting at the right end of the table, the attendances are just going to keep dropping. And that's the concern that plenty of fans have got. And hopefully the board have seen, and maybe this recruitment drive this year has possibly been the reason why they've done it that way.
Do you think, are you happy with recruitment so far in the way that it's going? And do you think it is a result of them learning about League Two football and English football? Or do you think it's got more to do with things like COVID and budgets and that kind of stuff? Or what do you think the story is?
I'd like to think it's they've learned from the mistakes. Obviously, COVID's going to play some part in it with the restrictions and people quarantining if they did come over. But for me, I'd like to think that they've seen that there is an issue and they're trying to address it. However, obviously, we are still looking, for me, quite weak on numbers. I always like to, and I've said it a couple of times on social media, I think you need 3 nasty players down the middle of your spine of your team. Your centre-half, centre-mid, and a forward, all nasty and aggressive in the manner. And I think that was probably the difference today. And I think that really would have pulled us through. A bit of grit in the middle of the park and a bit of grit up front to hold that ball up there and get players working around that person would have been a massive difference, because the quality wasn't there from Leyton Orient today. I don't think the quality was there from us, but I think we're missing 3 players, maybe 2, because I think Pergiani is quite an aggressive player and he threw his body on the line a couple of times today. But we're still missing, like Danny said, you know, a mechanic who's going to drive your team forward, even if he's, you know, not doing all of the running, he's deciding the tempo of the game, and get a striker in there.
It's
He's not afraid to throw himself about.
It's frustrating to have had him and not to have been able to keep him. And when you can see how he would complement the players that we brought in, it is very frustrating in that respect. I mean, I'm trying to be optimistic today. I don't want to be pessimistic on day one of the season.
No, not at all.
You know, and especially after a good result on the other night against Carlisle. But you know, there are options, there are combinations of players, new players that haven't played yet and stuff. So we will see how that kind of pans out. But there's just this familiarity with supporting Latics. It doesn't matter who the manager is. It doesn't matter who the players are. We weren't playing a particularly good team today. They had some very big lads on that Leyton Orient side, and they were always going to be difficult to break down. But we weren't beaten by quality. We were beaten by. I actually tweeted in the last 5 minutes. I said my heart rate inevitably goes up. It starts to beat faster. I can feel it beating through my chest. It happens every single, especially when the game's in the balance. My heart rate will start to go up. I can feel it pounding in my chest because. Primarily, it's because I'm afraid that we're going to concede a goal in the last 5 minutes. It's also because I'm excited that we might get a winner. But primarily, it's because I think we're going to concede. And unfortunately, it was a minute or two later than after the text, the tweet went out. That was it. The goal went in, and it was like,
here we go again.
Here we go. You know.
Right? I mean, after everything that's happened this year, and obviously how strange things are, the world that we're living in. There was a bit of normality brought back into it by Latics in the last couple of minutes there, and obviously thrown away, well, certainly 1 point. But like I said, if we can bounce back on Tuesday and then hopefully next Saturday at Stevenage, then we'll hopefully move forward and get some points on the board.
I mean, what I did say when I was chatting with Steve the other night was, I don't want to be that team that draws games every week. Again, we've struggled. We've finished seasons near the bottom of the table, and we've not lost that many, but we've drawn game after game after game. So I'll take a defeat today if we win on Saturday. I'd rather lose a game, win a couple, than get points and just end up racking up single points and just getting absolutely nowhere. So it can turn around very quickly, and yeah, I think we can't be judging the players and the manager yet. We have to just give everything a bit of time, don't we? I think more of the frustration and more of what we're judging is on the ownership and the day-to-day management of the club. And unfortunately, that bleeds into the football side of things. So do you think it could be a good thing that, in a way, that there aren't fans there breathing down the players' necks, and that might help them settle into the season a little bit easier? Or would you rather have... I mean, I know we'd all rather be there, but how quickly Latics fans get frustrated and how quickly they get on players' backs when things aren't going right. Do you think that once the team settles down, a quiet Boundary Park might be a healthier environment for some of the new signings?
Personally speaking, I don't see that view. I don't share the view, sorry. I mean, certainly at home games, I know we've not been very good at home for a number of years, and the certain parts of the crowd can get restless with parts of the play. But because I heard, I think it was Roy touched on it earlier in the day, whilst in the commentary, about fans being in the stadiums and how would that help the players to settle in. Now, when fans are in the stadiums, for me, it's a two-way street. Obviously, that they've got to be given something to cheer about. They've got to be given something to be excited about and support. Over recent years, the home performances certainly haven't been great. The results picked up under, obviously, Dino last year, where beating Mansfield, Bradford, and then obviously Newport in the last home game before the season was halted. I just think that having fans in there is probably what certainly spurs players on, really, personally. And the quicker that fans are back in stadiums, obviously, the better. And at Boundary Park, for me.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, there's no way that I would want it to stay quiet. It's just a question we've never been able to ask before, because these are such unique times. You know what I mean? It's something you can ask just to see what you might think. Because Boundary Park is a tough place for home players to play in. Sometimes, we're a very, very demanding bunch. We have quite a little patience, and I would suggest that some players have been not given enough time in the past. Players often go off from Latics to perform very, very well at other clubs, and you can't necessarily always put that down to the player. I just think it's something we should think about in terms of how we welcome players and how much time we're giving and how patient we are. And I'm also suggesting that maybe it's not the playing side of things, which is where the major frustration lies. It's the other side of things, which is bleeding into the, you're only time to vent as a fan, generally speaking, is when you turn up to the game. So maybe the players get the brunt of that kind of, unsettled anger and annoyance at everything that's going on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's one of those. You look at one of the things where we've had a couple of players who've needed an arm around them over the years, and bedding in this sort of environment will probably help them, rather than, a couple of bad touches early on and everyone's already judging in that sense. So you are right with that. It's obviously, you're always going to say fans should be in the ground. But it's such a fine line, isn't it? should we not have players in the fans in the ground just to make sure players are all right when they're earning the money that they are? I would always say fans in the ground.
Totally, and it's up to the players to. It's part of their development as a professional to learn to cope with all that and to not hear it and to be single-minded. But some players can do that. Some players thrive off it. And others don't. It would, in an ideal situation, as it stands at the minute, would be that we get to watch these games live, even if we don't on the stream, even if we don't all watch them all. We watch a few, we get to see who's good, and we start to get. We see a few goals, and we get a few favourites, and then when the fans come back in, the fans are on the side of some of those players already, and it just kind of helps. Do you know what I mean? Where people know the players a little bit and they've seen them, and hopefully then when fans do return to Boundary Park, we're able to have a bit of optimism in the stadium, regardless of what's going on off the pitch. And that's what we want. We want to be at Boundary Park, just enjoying the football. That's what it's, and we haven't been able to do that for a long time, with the rare exception.
It's one of those, isn't it? We've got to look at now. When fans are back in the ground, how it's going to work. Because obviously, for me, the best part of our fans is away. And I don't think away fans are going to be in for some time. So the players that we've brought in this season are not going to see the best of our fans, I don't think, because when you're at home, you don't have the same mentality of going out for a drink or anything at the games. And I think that's what really picks people up about the excitement of going to an away game, is the whole experience, whereas a home game, back home for 5:30, 6 o'clock and carry on with the rest of your night sort of thing.
Undoubtedly. And I think one of the major things that we need to address as a club and as a fan base going forward is how we bring the atmosphere into Boundary Park. What can we do? That is a major, major thing. Bums on seats is obviously one of those things. The more people there, the better the atmosphere. But from a cultural point of view, as in the club culture and the fan culture, it's something that I think that actually that as a supporters group, you guys are really well placed to gauge and to you have the access to many fans through your membership, through your newsletters, through your social media accounts and stuff like that. And it'd be great if we could do that. It'd be great if we could get Boundary Park rocking for a really bog standard League Two game, and bring some of that spirit that we take away from home back to Boundary Park.
I think it's going to be interesting because obviously we've brought in this new CEO, Carl Evans, and as we put out the other day, we're going to be having a meeting with him this week.
Yeah, you didn't mess about, did you?
We try not to. He's been good enough to straight away say he wants to meet with us and see how things go. And it's about trying to get a relationship with the club where we have a mutual understanding. Obviously, we always believe that we are constructive with what we say, but unfortunately things aren't always going to be nice hearing. And I hope Carl sees that when we do meet and that, we are old fans. We want to make sure fans are in the ground, but obviously what's on offer has got to be there as well. And like you say, when you're coming back to getting people in the ground, there are conversations that we can have with him in relation to what things can be done to try and increase attendance.
Well, I mean, he's coming with a blank slate, isn't he? He shouldn't have any kind of, he doesn't have any axe to grind with anybody. This is all brand new to him, so it's in his interest to start things off on the right foot, and it's just another new person coming into Boundary Park. So
it's not the newest one this week, is it? With the new youth team manager.
No, I know. There's a lot of new faces, and consistency is what we've lacked massively. And it's not just in terms of the coaching and the playing staff, although ultimately those two things are probably the most important. It's also in the back room. It's also in the only consistency that we've had is those real hardcore supporters that turn up week in, week out. And even now, that is under threat because those numbers are dwindling. So then you really are in trouble because they are the most consistent thing about the club, So you can't really do anything about consistency because it's a time thing, Things have to settle. What is the first question that you're going to ask the new CEO, if you've thought about that?
Oh, you've not even prepped us on this one, have you?
No. There's no prep involved in this podcast. Don't worry about that.
Go on, Danny.
I mean, personally, I think it's a massive opportunity for everybody involved, for ourselves, for Carl himself, and again for the club to really. I mean, we touched on obviously the recruitment drive earlier in the call before, and to me, it's been a notable change. It's been a refreshing change that we've brought in players. Some players that have played obviously quite a lot of games at League 2 level, League 1 level in McElhaney, Bobby Grant, and then filled it with young, hungry players like your Garrettys and Whelans and stuff like that. So I'm just hoping that it is the start of a change. As for the first question, I have no idea at this moment in time. We've got a few days to prepare that and a few days to prepare a few questions for him, and just to see what his opinions are on obviously the fan groups and how he.
I think it's going to be that understanding between each other, isn't it? How to move forward. How does he see it?
It'd be interesting to know what how aware he is of what's been going on at Boundary Park. How much attention has he paid to things, and whether or not he'd be prepared to sort of be very honest in his own personal view about that, talking about how he's felt about that up until now. I mean, one of the problems I've had with people, including Natalie, and just the general communication from the club, is it's always been very, very predictable and very, very boring and not honest. We need some honesty. We need some real kind of you need to be able to come away from a meeting saying, he told me exactly what he was thinking and what he was feeling, and I respect that, as opposed to just, I've just been told what I could have predicted myself, in terms of...
That's one of the key things, sorry to interrupt you there,
No.
That when we spoke with Abdallah and Natalie and Richard, the main thing that we said to them was, be honest with fans. Don't try and cover things up, because the honesty gets you a long way with supporters. If things aren't going right, say they're not going right.
Yeah.
Things are going, if things are going right, shout about it.
Definitely.
But it's one of those things where fans are never going to trust the club until the honesty's there.
When you do marketing, when you study your market, what you will generally do is you will, if you're preparing to launch a product or you're preparing to communicate with an audience, with a market, is you'll create these personas. And if you were to create the Oldham fan as a marketing persona, which somebody should have done at the club, because they have to market to the fans, what I would suggest that one of the criteria, one of the personality traits would be about honesty. I think people from Oldham, they can take stuff, just say it as it is, and they'll give you a lot more time and a lot more respect if you deliver things factually and you're honest. Like at Orient Cricket Club, the fans meeting, when they had the perfect opportunity there to say, and they did say, we've made mistakes, but what they didn't do is go into it and say, we've made mistakes, and those mistakes were, and
X,
this
Y,
is what
and Z.
exactly. Because anyone can say they made mistakes. Yeah, we've all made mistakes, but you're not really telling me anything. You're not really opening up until you say what that mistake was, what you've learned from it, and what you're going to do differently next time. So that's all we want. We don't expect them to be able to come in and to be able to press a few buttons and make everything brilliant. No one ever expected that.
Just touching on that, Matt, I know you said before about what the first question was. Maybe if our first question is about having another fans forum at Right and Green.
Yeah, make sure it's definitely streamed live on the internet because it was brilliant. Yeah. But look, I mean, it's a difficult thing. I think that's why, like, if you put a group together like yours who can speak on behalf of the fans, I mean, they were brave to do that, in fairness to them. And it's not the kind of forum which is going to be easy for anybody. You're not necessarily going to be able to get the right questions delivered in the right way. You're not necessarily going to be able to answer the questions in the right way. You're going to look back on it and you're going to say, I wish I thought I could have said this, I could have said that. You know, it's a difficult situation to be in. And in fairness to them, they put themselves in front of the firing line, and I think they regretted it pretty quickly. I think they regretted the fact that there was a bar there pretty quickly. But they did it. It's probably not the right forum. What I like about what you guys are doing is you are putting out to as many fans as possible, as many broad-ranging questions as possible, and then getting information back, getting data back. You know, one fan's opinion is important, but it's not really what it's all about, is it? You need to get a general view from the supporters and look at the stats and look at the percentages and this, that, and the other. And you're doing that, and then you can go back and present that, which is why it's frustrating that they've not sat down and talked to you.
Yeah,
based on that.
Certainly, that's one thing that I should imagine we will be doing with Carl Evans is giving him the data that we've collated over the year last year so much that has what fans are feeling, how engaged they feel with the club, and it's all on the survey results. So we'll provide him with everything that we've got if that helps him to obviously gauge the opinion of the club state as was prior to obviously the pandemic. And there's certain issues that haven't changed. Obviously the North Stand saga is still ongoing as far as we're aware. And again, that'd be another big thing for supporters that they want finalising. So upon return of supporters being allowed back into grounds, people can go and sit obviously in the North Stand should they choose to have a season ticket in there.
Just to touch on the surveys, I think we've put out 4 in this last year, and I think it's good to keep. And I know a lot of people say, "Oh, not another survey." The thing is with these surveys, they're up to date information. We can work off what fans are wanting at that particular time. Things change so much in football, and obviously Oldham Athletics no different to every other club. We want to try and keep up to date with what fans are wanting, and we can push home those points to the club by having that up to date information. And like you say, we'll present it to the club as best as possible and look for solutions with them. But hopefully, we can have that engagement with Carl, and he'll make it a thing where we do have regular contact with him.
Well, listen, we're running out of time, but I think it's really exciting. I think things need to change within the club. The supporters groups, the trust, and all these things are actually moving now. Something's happening, something's changing. So fair play to you lads for doing what you've done with Push the Boundary. We'll keep talking. This is a forum for fans. It's a forum for you. That's what it's all about. Like I said, I'm running out of time because Zoom I haven't upgraded to a pro, so I'm running out on the 40 minutes. It's probably best because I'll go on otherwise. So thanks a lot for contributing this week. And I'll talk to some of you or both of you again next week. The Boundary Park Alert System is a Studio 6 production, hosted, produced and edited by me, Matt Dean. Follow me personally on Twitter at Dublin OAFC and follow the podcast at OAFC Podcast. Thanks goes to Push the Boundary Supporters Group for their contribution to the show, and you can follow them on Twitter at PTB_OAFC, and you can join the group by registering your support at www.pushtheboundary.co.uk. The title music for the show